Okay, so for this session, we'll be discussing exponential functions and hopefully we can tackle logarithmic functions. So for this, what are important are basically, of course, the domain, range, graph, and the asymptotes. So what is an exponential function? It should be in this form, wherein a is the base, x is your exponent. What are the restrictions in here? That the base should be greater than 0, but not equal to 1. So that means it cannot be negative. Do take note that, for example, do we allow negative 2 to the x? Yes. But do we allow negative 2 to the x? That one, this one, the second one cannot be. The first one, yes, because it's only the 2 that is raised to the x and not the negative 1 in front, the invisible negative 1. So x can be any real number, whereas y is greater than the number outside. So when you graph this, how do you graph? Of course, it would be best since the exponent can be any real number. What I will do here is I'll try to substitute any number. So let's just say -1 for x, 0, 1, 2, and you can move, you know, if you want like 5 points, the middle point, and then 2 points forward, 2 points back. So you can see here that the graph would have this form. What you will notice here, guys, is that as it goes to the left, it comes closer and closer and closer to the x-axis, but it will not touch the x-axis. What can you say about that, guys? The x-axis. That the x-axis is an asymptote. Very good. So in this case, look at the equation. So for me, what I will do is y is plus or minus a to the x plus and minus, let's just say k, any constant. So I can say that the domain, any real number, for the range, if it's positive, it's greater than. If it's negative, it's less than the k. Because k is your horizontal asymptote. So in this case, what's your horizontal asymptote? There are no numbers at the bottom beside the 2 to the x. So that means y equals, when you cover this, you're left with 0. Y equals 0 is your horizontal asymptote. What's the symbol before the 2 to the x? It's positive. So it's greater than what is here. So greater than 0. Okay? In this case, even if we don't graph, you see that there's 1/2. Okay, what is the number at the bottom? There's nothing. It's 0. So I can say y equals 0 is a horizontal asymptote. Now, what's the symbol? It's positive. So positive siya, that means it's greater than 0. Since x is in the exponent, it is any real number. The thing is, um, you have to plot it to see the shape, how it behaves. See, it's still greater than 0, but then the shape is the opposite shape of this. It starts from higher and becomes lower and lower. So what are the properties of the exponential functions? Just earlier I just showed you the graphs, how they look like. Pero what are the properties that you really need to know? Well, for y raised to x, again, y equals a raised to x, a should be greater than 0 but not equal to 1. So in this form, the domain is any real number. The range, if there are no numbers at the bottom, it's greater than 0 because that number is your horizontal asymptote. And then when x equals 0, any number except 0, when raised to 0 is equal to 1. That's why property number 4 is written here. The graph passes through 0, 1, and there is no x-intercept. Why? Because that is your asymptote. The function is always 1 to 1. Tas ito, When a is greater than 1, it is increasing, just like this. When a is greater than 1, it increases. But when a is less than 1, here the base is less than 1, it starts from high and then it decreases. So those are the properties I want you to ensure that you know. So let's try to, plot them. Look at this, guys. 2 raised to negative x, oh, the power is negative. Isn't it that we have a rule in algebra that when the power is negative, you can take the 1 over of that number, basically the reciprocal of that number. So it is 1 half raised to x. It starts from high and then it decreases. Number 4, this one you already know. Number 3. Look at number 4. There is negative outside. So since there's negative outside, what happens is that it goes down. So uh range is less than 0 because 0 is your horizontal asymptote. Domain, x can be any real number. That's why look, x, you just try any number there. Here again, y is negative. So it is below. But then look, it is less than 1. So it increases naman. It's the opposite. So look at this. If it's in this form, there might be some shifting. So h units to the right, if h is positive, h units to the left, it's h is negative. And then if k is positive, it goes up. If k is negative, it goes down. So here, let's try this. Give the domain the range. Guys, can you tell me what the domain of number 6 is? The domain, x is an element of all the real numbers. Very good. What about the range? Look at the symbol. It's positive. So y is greater than. Are there any numbers outside? There's nothing, right? Greater than 0. Because your horizontal asymptote is y equals 0. Here, domain. Lahat pala ng x natin are in the power or are in the exponent. I can see that. Domain is all real, all real, all real for all of the items. The range is the one that is changing. Here, the range, it's positive, so it's greater than. What's the number outside, guys? 1. Very good. So, range is greater than 1. What is the horizontal asymptote? It is that number. You understand? Now, in this case, the range is y is what? Less than 0 because 0 is the number outside. Okay? So here, y is what? Can you tell me, guys, please? Greater than -1 because your horizontal asymptote is -1. Next, please. Next to y is less than 2. Tama. Last one. Y is very good. Less than -1. Tama. Because your horizontal asymptote is 2. Your horizontal asymptote is -1. So let's check. Ito, these are the graphs. Look at this. The domain range and the asymptote, you don't have a problem in identifying those. The thing is, you just have to know how to graph it. Remember the graph that we had earlier, the blue one? Now it says here x minus 3. Isn't it that it's always opposite? If it's negative in that form, kasi the form should be y a x minus h plus k. If h there is positive, that means you move to the right here, it becomes the red. It just moves 3 units to the right. So that's what you call shifting. Let's just try graphing. Ah, let's just create some items, to help you understand how to graph it. Say 2 to the x plus 1 minus 3. Okay. First, guys, can you please help me identify the domain, the range, and the horizontal asymptote? What's the domain, guys? Very good. X, such that X is an element of the real numbers. I'll just write it properly, What's the range? Y is greater than -3. What is the horizontal asymptote? Equals -3. Very good, guys. All of you already know this. Now, since it's the domain that is all real, what I would do, guys, is this. X and Y. What will make the exponent 0, guys? -1. So that means the graph, let's start with -1 and then let's add probably two numbers. And then here on the other side, let's add probably two numbers as well. -1, 2 to the -1 is 1. Minus 3 is -2, right? If it's 0, 2 to the 1 is 2 minus 3 is -1. If it's 1, 2 squared 4 minus 3 is 1, right? If it's -2, -2 plus 1, guys, what's that? -1. So 2 to the -1, that's 0.5, 1 half. 1 half minus 3, that's -2.5. What about -3 plus 1? That's -4. -3 plus 1 is -2, sorry. 2 to the -2, that's 1/4 or 0.25, 0.25, guys, right? 0.25 minus 3 is -2.75, right? So what we will do is, let's try. If x is -1, it's -2 daw. If x is 0, -1. If x is 1, 1. If x is -2, 2.5. If x is -3, 2.75, somewhere near this. So when you notice, you said earlier that the asymptote is -3. So what I can do is, I can already say there that that one is my horizontal asymptote. And what I do is, I draw the curve like that. So you know that it comes near and near and near, but it does not equal, but y equals 0. Sorry, that's y equals -3. Y equals -3 is a horizontal asymptote. Can you follow, guys? How to draw? All right. So if I ask you, can you please answer for me the shifting along x and along y? How did it shift along the x-axis? To the right or to the left? X plus 1 yan. So, to the left by 1 unit. Tama? And then, what about the y? How did it shift? Up or down? Down by 3 units. Can you follow? Let's go to some examples. Look at this. X minus 3. So that means it shifted 3 units to the right. Pero what about the y? The y did not shift. It's exactly on the same y. Next example. In this case, what's the shifting along the x? Can you tell me? Tell me the direction also. 3 units to the right and 1 unit up. Tama? Um, Sige, let's try another one. With this, guys, I would like you to give me the domain, the range, the horizontal asymptote. Tell me the shifting, and let's create the table. Okay, what's the domain? Very good. All real. What about the range, guys? Y is less than -4 because your horizontal asymptote is y equals -4. Shifting. Ano yung shifting niya? Dalawang shifting yan. 3 units to the right. How many units down? 3 units. Wala kang pakialam guys dun sa negative sign in front ha. The negative sign in front just tells you if it's less than or greater than yung range. Pero look at the number. Number is -4. So that means 4 units down. Can you follow? So with this, you already know that you have shifted 3 units to the right. So 3 units to the right, maybe um we can say 3, yun yung pinaka-central natin. And then add more, subtract, 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 subtract if you want to have more points. So this is the central number natin because 3 is what makes that exponent 0. So what's this? What's the answer? Can you please help me out? For -1, -4.0625. If it's 0, -4.125. If it's 1, -4.25. If it's 2, -4.5. If it's 3, -5. 4, -6. Pag 5, -8. All right. So with that, guys, you know that you have tried up until 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you know that -4 is your asymptote as stated here. So you have to draw that line. Y is -4 is your HA. I usually use dotted line. Okay. So at 3, it is -5. At 4, it's -6. At 5, it's -8. And then it comes closer and closer, right? So your shape would most likely be this. Did you get the same shape, guys? So sometimes also, because the others are, just normal exponential functions. Now sometimes we will encounter e. E is what you call the natural number, wherein the value of the natural number is 2.71828. Can you please press using your calculators? Press the e function and then kunyari e squared. What's the value of e squared? 7.39 roughly. Sige, very good. In that, please make sure that you're using yung mga e function. So this is the plot. It's basically the same. It's just that e is a special number. It's a natural number. Okay? So